2017 was an amazing, absolutely mind-blowingly just amazing year for gaming. And for the most part, there was nothing that I played that I really hated, except for two things. One being Goat Simulator, which really is not my kind of game anyway, so it would be unfair for me to properly bitch about that on video. I'm not really one for games without an end goal, you know, that the kind of narrative, something you're working towards, and Goat Simulator is not that kind of game. It's, you know, the thing that other people love it for is, you know, that ability to dick around in this open world and do silly things. And I played it for about an hour or so, and then I was just like, I'm done. I'm absolutely done. So that I really did not like. And the other game that I really did not like last year was Sniper Ghost Warrior 3. Now, I was not a fan of the previous two games. Just graphically and just story-wise and that, I found nothing engaging about those games. The multiplayer that I played with Malcolm was just atrocious. So I went in with not the greatest of expectations, but it was awful. If I had a list of worst games, that would be easily at the top. But I played somebody else's copy, and I only played it for an hour or so. So I have no desire to purchase it just to record clips, and I have no intention of ever talking about that game ever again. So just avoid it at all costs. But for as amazing as last year was, there were some games that there was so much promise, so much promise, and a lot of the games listed here are good games. There is just something about them that really put them down in letdown, or just felt was so flawed that I just could not put them on a best of list. So essentially a year late, here is my list of 7 most disappointing games of 2017. It would have been 8, to be honest, on the list. Prey being the one that I cut at the last minute because I just felt I hadn't played enough to give that the light of day. So it may turn up on a list in the future. But for now, this list is only 7 titles long. So that just goes to show that when you get to the point where you're only listing games that were just off, I think that just goes to show the calibre of last year's titles. But anyway, here's my top 7 most disappointing games of 2017. And we're starting off with Sniper Elite 4. Yeah, okay, so let me get this straight off the bat. There are personal issues in that I think severely marred my enjoyment of this game. So, you know, that's private stuff and that. But this is why this is so far down on the list, because I realised there are outside issues that were affecting my enjoyment. But I think it's pretty fair to say, both Malcolm and I played this game. We went in with such high expectations as big fans of the Sniper Elite series, having played 2 and 3 cooperatively, and Rebellion's kind of spin-off series, Zombie Army Trilogy. And I got something in my mouth, sorry. So we went in, our expectations were right up there, and we'd been following all the promotional stuff and now all the news, and we were a little dubious about the whole open world aspect, but, you know, we still went in, you know, just expecting fun, you know, rebellion fun. But what sold this game was the open world element, and for the most part that was okay. It was something that really was suited to something where you're playing a sniper shooting over a long distance. But we played on the most difficult difficulty setting, which is not hard. It's really not that difficult. But there are a number of factors that are taken away in the hard difficulty. Really, I don't get the point of removing them. You're shown the map, but you're not shown where you start out. You are not shown where any of your objectives are. You're just expected to explore this whole map, which again, fine. But the enemy is way too easily, like, you can snipe from like a good 300 you know, meters, kilometers, whatever the distance is in that game. I can't remember now. You can shoot from ages away, and yet the whole area is put on alert. It's like, what is even the point of taking them out from a distance if they're then going to be on alert regardless? Malcolm is very, very good at close quarters combat. We have a very good where he will do the close quarter stuff and I will take out from a distance. And it's just, he would go in and like trying to find people, you would get so easily spotted. And then they just know where you are automatically. And again, that's not a bad thing. But it just really took away from the whole, what has always been a really good stealth element of the Sniper Elite series. So yeah, the map system is completely pointless. You're not even told what your side objectives are, so you don't know until you unlock, so you don't know how many there are per mission, so you don't know until the end what you've missed. And can we talk about collectibles? And a rat falling down in a cage. Collectibles so, you know, we get the trophies and stuff, and we're both collectathon players. We will, I mean, Malcolm has kind of picked up from me, just scouring every edge, you know, in the scenery and stuff like that. But we found there were diaries and letters, etc., on enemies. Except, say you snipe somebody from however far away, the bodies would disappear and take with them their collectibles. In previous iterations, the collectibles would be left on the ground. But these guys would just disappear and you would lose the stuff. And it made for a very tense and stressful thing where it's like, you know, couldn't really shoot anybody for a distance. The only option was to do close quarters. If you wanted to collect the letters and diaries, etc. And I mean, there was one level where you're in this like bunker, and we must have traversed that level about 10 times. Looking up and down, clicking the button everywhere on the floor, trying to find this one diary which we knew we could not have missed, and it had just randomly disappeared. So that really took away from the fun. We didn't really get onto the multiplayer issue because we were trying to touch other stuff. But just, I will say, I did like the, you have to use on the harder difficulty, you have to use your binoculars to garner the distance of the enemy, to then change the setting on your sniper rifle. And I really didn't like it in the beginning, but actually I came to enjoy it a lot. There was a lot of tactical fun there, I thought, in the end. But even then, it wasn't a precise option. And when you're dealing with enemies that are immediately on edge, even when you're so far away, you couldn't even really take a tester shot, you know, to see where it would go. And that was kind of frustrating. Otherwise, it followed the basic. There was so much that felt true to Sniper Elite. But yeah, there was a lot of problems with this game, and as a result, it was an absolute letdown. So that's why I had to put it on the list. And, you know, this year's game that will be on my 2018 list did not help for our enjoyment of Rebellion games. But no, Sniper Elite 4, absolute bust. Next up is Styx, Master of Shadows, which, again, so much promise. An amazing stealth game, excellent character with Styx, excellent voice acting for his character. I do not remember the name of the actor off the top of my head that voices him, but I really enjoyed him as a character, and just like the voice and stuff, like there were layers to that character that I was really looking forward to you know, seeing evolve over the course of the game. Except okay, so you have about, what's it, 8-10 levels I think in the whole game. It's a relatively decent length game, not particularly long, but it's not too short. It's a good, for what it is, it's a really good length. But about half of those levels, much like, say, Metal Gear Solid 5, are essentially repeat levels. I mean, I get that you're essentially in the same locale, you're in this one castle, but you visit like four rooms twice. And all the collectibles are in exactly the same places, and you're just like, oh, we're here again. Okay. I was just like, and it's gutting because there was so much that I enjoyed gameplay wise with the sneaking and just the mechanics of how Styx moves, etc. But no, just that really took away. And then you get to the cutscenes, which basically felt unfinished. Now, using art, still art, as like cutscenes is not a bad thing. I've seen it really well done, especially like the Infamous games, where they use this comic book style and layers and move the layers and stuff, and you know, with the music and the voice it can be really amazing. Except in Styx Master of Shadows, like you'll get something that's like a cutscene, but then it will cut to these just still images of one character. And they're not even like in an interesting scenery. It's just the one character with just a colour behind them. Like the slightly mottled colour maybe or something, just to change it up a bit. But it's really boring. And some of the voice acting on the king and stuff is really bad. You know, for all the the amazingness that is the Styx voice actor, some of the other voices are really subpar. But no, just, it's so lazy. You've just got this one character with this coloured background, and then it will just cut from, like, between that, there's no emotion or that, to, like, a shot of Styx sat there, and then it will cut back, and you're just sat there completely unimmersed in these cutscenes. And it's like, this is where our main story is told. Why are you making it so boring? Now, I do not know the development company. I really should have looked this up, I guess, before doing this video. I don't know if they're an indie company or whatever. I don't think so off the top of my head. But it just feels lazy. If it was an indie company, I would completely understand. But then on some level, like I say, there is so much graphically with the rest of the game that is amazing, just the art direction. But then you get to this and you're like, oh, okay. And just mixed with the laziness of the repeated maps, like I say, you're not even looking for different places for the collectibles. They're in exactly the same place that they were in the first time through, the first time you were in the same level. So yeah, just that game was, I enjoyed it so much, but there were so many issues with it that just really dragged it down. And had those issues not been in place, I would have easily put it on my top games of the year. But unfortunately, that brought it down. I have played the demo of the sequel, Shards of Darkness, I think it is, or something. I own the game now, but I played the demo, and I haven't played it yet. But I played the demo a while back, and I'm really a lot of the movement and that was exactly the same. So I'm looking forward to seeing in the final game what it's like, and again, that may go on either or list in the future. Yeah, no, I really I enjoyed the demo of the new one, and the sense of humour in it is just as good, if not better, than in the first game. So I'm looking forward to playing that.
Did you stream that? I want a percentage on your best Goblin Death compilation.
So much promise with Master of Shadows, just fell flat at the final hurdle, unfortunately. At number 5, we've got Life is Strange, which was another one of those games in the episodic kind of Square Enix trying to jump on the Telltale's formula of episodic storytelling. And I was fascinated by the mechanic of the time rewind mechanic. I just said mechanic twice, didn't I? Sorry. I was really looking forward to trying that out and stuff. I didn't go in with particularly high expectations. It was a teenager in a school kind of situation. I was just like, whatever. I thought being Square Enix, it might be some kind of weird, like, Japanesey kind of, schoolgirl thing, but it's not. However, I'm sorry, Chloe and Max are the worst characters I have ever dealt with in any game. I mean, you want to talk about, games finally having females as the lead characters and that. This is not the game to look at if you're looking for a decent, strong female character. Chloe is by far the worst. And your character gives her chance after chance. And you're trying to, I get her backstory, there's a lot of emotion there, but, and you're trying to see, how, what has made her who she is, and obviously I don't want to go really too far into spoilers, but, she's lost her dad and that, and you're trying to be sympathetic towards that, and about how that has made her who she is now. Oh my god. If you want to know, incompetent teenager, and I mean, again, teenager, you could say that's the excuse. No, it was painful. And your protagonist, Max, is vile. I didn't feel like, again, I guess it depends on your personality yourself and how you identify with who you're playing as. Characters like Max are why you end up with these silent protagonists. Because honestly, I could not stand Max. I didn't like her motivations. There was so much. You could say, she hadn't been in contact. She lost, you lose contact with friends that you loved and stuff like that. Yeah, but Max was just general. And then, she was leading along the boy. And it wasn't clear on her, kind of relationship with Chloe. You had these romantic undertones, but then, it was odd. I wasn't clear. I don't know if it was some kind of... it was weird. And don't even get me started about, Before the Storm. That's a whole other issue. No. Life is Strange, I just found frustrating. There was some fun characters. I liked Samuel, the groundskeeper. There were some characters that were interesting to explore. You know, the vulnerability of Victoria, or you know, you've got the other character that, you know, you have to save from killing herself and stuff. It dealt with stuff like depression and that. And I felt like it was interesting that it was trying to get into those mental health issues. But some of the execution was a little, just the payoff was a little underwhelming. And there was just like this whole thing with like the teacher and oh, just some of the characters were just intolerable. And I'm sorry. There's so much about this game that I know a lot of people love. But for me, it was just frustrating. And I was just sat there through each episode going, kill me now. I just had no interest, no connection really in these characters. And like I say, Max and Chloe particularly were just unbearable. So that's why I gotta put Life is Strange, unfortunately, on this list. I am gonna get so much hate because, unfortunately, number 4, we have to put Resident Evil 7. Please, please put your pitchforks down and hear me out. This is not, by any means, a bad game. This is amazing, and I'm fascinated by the new... I don't even have an issue with the first person aspect. I was dubious when they announced it, but I really didn't mind that at all. If anything, it made me feel more immersed. But and the setting, the house, the Baker family, especially when later in the game, you see what they were like before they were infected by this mold. It's really kind of heartbreaking to see, you know, where they were and how they ended up. But for the first half of the game, it is tense. It is. I mean, I did a first impressions video, and for the whole time I was just sat there. The tension, the atmosphere in that place is just. It really has you going around, kind of like Alien Isolation. The whole time I'm sat there going, hello. Waiting for something to jump out, because the music and that just sets it up that anything could just grab you at any point. And that was amazing, and it really felt like the game, you know, the Resident Evil franchise was going back to its roots. Because I've been, you know, loving the Resident Evil games since the very beginning, so it was lovely to feel like we'd gone back to the roots kind of thing. Except, why couldn't this have been called anything other than Resident Evil? It shares nothing really with the previous mythos. Umbrella don't really factor in. They're now rebranded and stuff, and that's a whole other issue with Chris at the end. I don't know what the fuck happened to his face between games, but yeah, and just the whole point, and that's, you know, with the DLC, I'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, just, you know, Umbrella's not really involved, you know, you don't really have stars involved at all, so it doesn't really share much of anything with the previous games. I don't know why this couldn't have been a survival horror game under any other title, except for, you know, they were trying to get the brand recognition, I guess. But that's not what the problem is that I have with this game. So once we get to the halfway mark, that things really start to fall apart, because you realise that the villains, for the most part, so you have the Baker family, which are your main bosses, if you will. But then you have the mold monsters, that inhabit the mansion. And you realise after a while that actually there's not that many variety on the enemy front. And it gets a little repetitive and a little boring. They have like these uber versions of them that like are armoured and a lot more difficult to deal with. Otherwise, there is no variety regarding and when you think back on the Resident Evil series, when you've got Lickers, which were easily my most terrifying enemy, Cerberuses, the Tyrants, the Hunters. I've got a Funko of the Hunters, so I was looking over. I was like, I cannot think of the name. The Hunters, the Regenerators, all the different types of enemies that we've had in Resident Evil over the years, and there is just no variety really with the mold creatures. So that gets really tiresome and really uninventive after a while, and you're just like, oh, okay. So then your main enemy falls down to the Baker family. And, Ma Baker is just terrifying. She is really well done. Pa Baker is where things get a little frustrating, because he comes back time and time again as different versions. And it made sense like the first time when he's showing you, what can be done. And that didn't make sense. It's like, wait, the dude's trying to kill you, but at the same time he wants to show you the glory of, like, what she can do and stuff like that. Yeah, that got a little frustrating. But Lucas is where things really fall apart, because Lucas is evil from a little child. He's a psychotic, animal-killing little shit anyway. So then you find out that he's kind of infected by the mold, but he's not fully affected by it because he's working with the big corporation and stuff like that. So, but then he's like, torturing the camera guy and that was with the ghost hunters. And yeah, so we get this big showdown kind of with Lucas, in a way, insofar as he's trapped you in this room and you relive this room that the cameraman turns out was kept in. But you never have any closure with Lucas. You go to his salt mine, and that's it, like where he's put bombs, but you have no real showdown with him. Just nothing. There's no payoff in the main game for his character. And you're just like, oh, okay. And I mean, he's not like the main villain, but we're talking vast level evil shit here. I think it falls into that kind of Far Cry 3 problem where it has this villain, and he gets offed or just disappears way too soon. So you have that, and the only way really to take on Lucas is in the Chris DLC. Now, fine, that DLC is free, but I shouldn't be waiting. I mean, that DLC came out like 8 months after the initial game was released. So it's just like, oh my god. So yeah, just that was disappointing. But so you have that, and then you go to the dock. I'm sorry, everything from the dock is just tripe. Is absolute tacked on. It was like they were done with the Baker family. What are we gonna do? We need to stretch this out to a 10-hour game or whatever. What are we gonna do? So then you get a decision between your wife or Zoe, who's a member of the Baker family. That choice means nothing. It really does not. If you pick Zoe for some strange reason, she is off straight away, and then randomly you pick up with your wife on the boat that she technically only gets to, should only really get to if you picked her. So essentially the game is saying you have this choice, but we already have the choice made for you. So, you know, why would you pick anything differently? And the whole the backstory they tried with the wife on the boat, it was kind of interesting, but it dragged on too long. And then we're on the boat with Ethan, or whatever his name is, our main protagonist, and we get so many exposition dumps in like file form. You have to pick up all these files, and they are the only, if you do not go around picking up all files, if you are not OCD like I am, and you do not bother with any of those files, you will not get any exposition whatsoever. Because in this one room you get about 10 files that cover every bit of backstory, experimentation with the girl and the mold, and that is what your only real way of finding out anything. And it's frustrating, and then you're just sat there going, and then the game just kind of peters out at the end, and you're just like, there was so much at the beginning of this game. Was amazing. I would have easily, if it was just based, despite the problems with the mold, lack of mold variations, I would have if it was just based on everything before the dock, I would have easily put this as one of my favourite games. But unfortunately the stuff after the dock exists, and it just absolutely kills everything amazing about the game. So yeah, I'm sorry. I know there's going to be people pissed off, because I know this game ended up on a lot of people's best of the year lists. But no, it's not a bad game. It just stops at like the midpoint and then just dies in front of you, and you're like, okay. I was even prepared to you know, just give it so much high praise for the fact that you can play the entire game in VR. And that is amazing, considering so many other VR games are very short, not very, you know, they're graphically, you know, downgraded and stuff. This game keeps its same graphics and that in VR. The only downside is it fades to black a lot for loading, etc. And that really takes you out immersion-wise. You can feel so claustrophobic in that, playing that game with the VR. And as an experience, it's amazing. But it just fades to black and then fades back up so frequently. You'll be in the middle of a situation and it will just load. And you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, no, it really takes you out. You don't feel quite as immersed anymore. So again, I was ready to praise that game even just for that element, but again, it falls short there. So that is why for me it's an exceptionally disappointing letdown. At number 3 we have For Honor. Does anybody remember that game came out last year? No, I don't think they do. I don't even know if anybody plays that game anymore. Yeah, Ubisoft really, there was so much like promise for this game, except Ubisoft shot themselves in the foot to start with their server issues, and how, you know, people could not get online with it and stuff. But it was just, it was so underwhelming. This, actually, I don't really have much to talk about on this. I played this a lot when it came out. I played it with the beta, and then I played it in the main, when the game came out. I was looking forward to playing this cooperatively and stuff. But no, it's just underwhelming. It's just so forgettable. And it's sad because it was such an interesting concept. And, you know, some of the PvP is fun, but generally, it's just so forgettable. And so some of the controls are a little broken, There's serious problems with lag, I found. And just, yeah, the servers kept crashing. It was just a joke. It was just awful. And trying to get in some matches was just impossible. So yeah, For Honor. So much promise. Just badly handled execution and no real maintenance. Even, like, we had so many games that have come out like shite and then been improved, say like No Man's Sky, you know, when they've been improved with updates. But For Honor just seems to have disappeared, and I think even Ubisoft probably forget they even made it. So yeah, that's why I got to put For Honor. Just all round disappointment. Just broken. And just forgettable in every conceivable way. Except for, you know, playing as the Shoguns, because they were badass. But otherwise, no, it was just broken and disappointing. In the penultimate spot, we have Yooka-Laylee, which actually was going to go in the number 1 spot, but I'll explain why that didn't shortly when I get to number 1. But yeah, Yooka-Laylee. So this one I was exceptionally looking forward to. I followed the crowdfunding and stuff like that. The fact that we were going to get a game by some of the developers that used to be at Rare, you know, worked on Banjo-Kazooie and stuff, that was so hyped, because I really miss the kind of mascot platformers and stuff. And I know Nintendo kind of have continued that with Mario and stuff, but otherwise we just don't get the Raymans and the Crocs and the Banjo-Kazooies and the Jak and Daxters and stuff like that anymore. We just don't, unfortunately. So to see Yooka-Laylee in production was really exciting. And then you get the actual product. And can I just say, I love Yuka and Laylee as characters. I would love to see them, you know, in a much better made game. But unfortunately, we're not looking at Ratchet and Clank level gameplay here. Not only is this game about 3 hours long, it is exceptionally easy, and you could say, well, it's because it's a kid's game. And yes, I would easily accept that as a excuse. But whereas, you know, we have a lot of movies and TV and games that can bridge that game, you know, bridge that gap with like kids play, but double entendres and stuff for the adults. This game is quite heavily bogged down in meta commentary, like regarding microtransactions and just how games used to be and how long it's been since Banjo-Kazooie and stuff like that. And you're sat there going, is this game aimed at older players or kids? I'm not quite clear on who it's aimed for. You know, it wasn't even like a nudge nudge wink wink kind of situation. It like keeps bumping you, you know, botching you over the head constantly with these like in-joke references and just commentary on the gaming world and stuff like that. And you're just sat there going, I get it. I get it. This game is like made 15 years after you made a decent game last. You don't need to harp on about it. And the camera is the worst camera I think I've used since a PlayStation 1 game. You know what, it's different. It's one thing making a game that harkens back to games of that era. It's a whole other issue when you essentially copy and paste the control system from those games. It's just like, this game is not really made to be used with analog sticks at all. It's just like the camera is just all over the place. And when you're like rolling or moving quickly, you just have no way of getting a decent fix on the camera and stuff. So it just controls like absolute ass. I didn't even complete the game. I will go back to it at some point, but I got so frustrated with the camera and controls. I had to put the controller down because I was ready to throw the controller through the window. It was that bad. And yes, the whole strange voicing for the narration is funny and obviously nostalgic in the sense that it harkens back to the, you know, the Banjo-Kazooie language and stuff. And let's face it, Nintendo are the prime examples of developers that are able to make games with very little language used so that it goes across like language barriers across the world and stuff. So, you know, you would think that it would be a simple thing to implement in the modern gaming. Except, it just goes on and on. It starts, you get those characters like the B character and stuff that just go on and on for boxes upon boxes of dialogue. And they have this voice that's like a 2-second loop over and over again for like 30 seconds. I had it as well where the game would glitch and even after the characters have stopped talking you would still get that as you're going along, and I'm like, shut up, it makes your ears bleed. They didn't need to have the voices just constantly going on. All they needed really was like a good like snippet for like the start of the dialogue box maybe, or you know, maybe when you then click the button to go on to the next box it started up again or something, but to go on constantly and then essentially glitch itself out, that was a little ear bleeding, no matter how nostalgic it was. But yeah, no, it was just really disappointing. Just really. I was so sad. I was so looking forward to it, and visually it's beautiful, and especially, you know, it wasn't, I mean, I think Microsoft ended up, no, it can't have been because I got it on PlayStation. But anyway, whoever ended up helping them out in the end, you know, I think they did get some help in the end. But, you know, it's considering the amount of people that worked on it initially, the fact that we got it at all is amazing. And, you know, it's just disappointing to see that it was a crowd-funded project that was so hyped, and say much like Mighty Number X and oh my god, Mighty Number 9, much like that kind of thing, it was another project that just turned out like crap, and that's really disappointing to me. So that's why I had to put it at number 2. But at number 1, ooh, I'm gonna get so much flack for this one. At number 1 we have South Park: The Fractured But Whole. And for me to say that this game is on this list, I cannot express how painful that fact is. Because I'm not even kidding. I was ready to put this on my best of list before I'd even played the game. I was so hyped for, you know, finally the superhero characters that I'd loved on the show, and having been such a massive fan of the Stick of Truth, I was so hyped for Fractured But Whole. Yeah, it was released too quickly. It was rushed, and I mean a lot. So whereas Stick of Truth was in development for a long time, to the fact that it became a joke even on the show that it still hadn't been released, you know, you felt like the time had been put in, and I know there were thousands upon thousands of pages of dialogue and that for that game. But so Obsidian were no longer doing the game. They'd made Stick of Truth. Unfortunately, it was all on Ubisoft's shoulders for Fractured But Whole. So that really should have probably sounded the warning bell. But I went in still so excited, and just, it is so underwhelming. Whereas Stick of Truth, and I know it's easy, now I'm just going to sound like I'm comparing it and stuff like that, but I think if you're going to come out with a game, you know, not that long after the one. And especially a game that was so well done, you're gonna have those comparisons. So, you know, Stick of Truth had so many memorable scenes. There was so much about that game that I could easily stand here even, sorry. I could sit or stand here and quote you. You know, be it, you know, the abductions, be it the stuff with the Nazi zombies and the fetuses and the anal probes and the crab people living down in the sewers and not getting their part because they ran out of time to put them in the game. The gnomes, the underpants gnomes, sorry. You know, and the sex scene and Randy at the abortion clinic and the stuff with Big Gay Al, and just there was so much about that game that was memorable. There is nothing about South Park Fractured But Whole that's memorable, except for how boring it was. And how much at the end. You want to talk about games? There are so many games on this list that, like, say, Resident Evil 7, that just died at the end. Oh no! South Park Fractured But Whole took the whole notion, ran with it. It just peters out at the end. And you think that you have your final boss battle, but it goes on. And on. And I don't know if it's supposed to be a meta commentary or something, but it just drags on. And I'm sat there going, this is not finished yet. And then you have the whole stuff with Jennifer Lopez, and stuff like that, and Cartman's hand puppet stuff that I remembered from the show. But I was just like, I don't even know if anybody's going to remember this. And it just went on way too long. And you just get to the point where you're like, so is it Cartman or is it the hand thing or what? And then you're just like, oh, I just don't even care anymore. And you had stuff with Cousin Kyle earlier in the game where he goes through this whole thing. It was awesome to see Mephisto back because, like, he hadn't been a part of the show or anything for about 20 years now, I don't think. So it was nice to see him come back. But again, like, the whole stuff with Cousin Carl and him getting experimented on by Mephisto and that came to nothing. He's like this big boss battle, which is easily the hardest battle of the whole game, and that's just it. Again, that just stops. And you're just like, okay, now what? And then they come up with this new story, and I'm just like, what? It's rudderless. And the trophy list on this game is so boring. Whereas you had interesting stuff in Stick of Truth, like fart on a Nazi, aborted Nazi fetus and stuff, or you know, get all the friends and stuff like that. I went round making friends on the social media, which should have been an amazing achievement kind of goal kind of thing. That's not even a trophy. You go around, you try and collect everybody to be on your friends list, and it's all for nothing. I mean, you have this Facebook-esque, like, feed, and now and then you'll get fun little bits, but otherwise it was completely pointless. I have never been, this was easily, by far, the biggest letdown I have had for forever. I don't think since, like, GTA 4 I have been this let down by something. And I mean, this is a worse game than GTA 4, but I was so hyped and let down by GTA 4 that's why I mention it, because that was a big letdown. This is just underwhelming on every conceivable level. Stuff does not pay off. The summons, which were so much fun in the first game, are really boring. Like, you could only get one per day. One, like, you know, one use of Jesus or Mr. Hanky and stuff. Now you can just like buy your summons, and they're not even that interesting. Like, Mr. Slave was the most grotesque and hilarious summon, but just in this they've got like oh my god, Moses one, which is exceptionally boring no matter how much it helps. I genuinely, without going back to the game, I couldn't tell you all the summons because they were so boring and so just disappointing. They were nowhere near as fun as they were in the first game. I'm sorry, Matt and Trey, but, you know, I still love the show. I still love Stick of Truth, even though I went back to it after finishing Fractured But Whole, because Fractured But Whole came with the digital copy, PS4 version of Stick of Truth. And I went back to it and I realised that actually some of the controls in that are awful. But I still just narratively, and, you know, even the stuff with the girls and stuff like that was so much more fun. I really, you know, there were so many bits in Fractured But Whole that showed so much promise. The commentary on like the ethnicity slider and the difficulty and you know, whether you're a girl and stuff like that, and the commentary they were trying to make with the transgender and all that stuff, it felt like they were wrapping themselves up in knots after a while with that stuff, even though it started out funny and with promise. After a while it just felt like they were needlessly, you know, hammering on your head kind of thing with it, and you're just like, really stop it now. So yeah, just story wise it was uninteresting. They didn't really even roll with the whole Mysterion you know, kind of deaths, which I always thought was an amazing thing in the you know, in the Coon and Friends series of episodes. And they didn't even have Mintberry Crunch in the game at all. I think you meet his parents, and of course because his sister is one of the goth kids, and again the goth kids were like one of the best parts of Stick of Truth. They are just dumped in this one bedroom and you like have one interaction with them and that's it. I don't know, I didn't buy the season pass because, you know what, I was so let down by the game. I think I read somewhere that Mintberry Crunch is in one of the DLCs, but to be honest I don't care, because beyond the game I'm just not interested, because it was such a letdown. I cannot express to you, I mean, it was Revival of the X-Files level disappointment for me. It was, I went in with so much, and you could say that is why I'm so let down by it, because I had it on such a pedestal. The fact I was prepared to put it on my best of list before I'd even played it. That just goes to show how kind of blinded I was to the concept of, you know, whether this would be a letdown. But there is nothing memorable. I've tried, like, thinking about it. There are little bits here and there. It was nice to see the crab people finally turn up, and their bit is funny, but again, it's short-lived. Everything is short-lived. It gets presented and then dumped. And especially the cousin Kyle stuff was hilarious at the beginning, but he gets dropped so quickly you're just like, oh, okay, and the point of that was? There's just nothing memorable about this game. It was easily, by far, the most disappointing game I played in the whole of 2017. And to be honest, it's the most difficult, most disappointing game I've played to date. Just absolutely gutting. Just, I cannot express how much that really upsets me even to think about, that I have to put it on this list at all, let alone at number one. But yeah, South Park, The Fractured But Whole, most disappointing game of 2017. But that's it for now, guys. I'm sorry if a number of these games being on this list has pissed you off. To be honest, it kind of disappoints me to have to list them even, because there was so much promise in these games. If you've played any of these games, I'd really love to hear your thoughts on them, especially like the more pressing issues with many of them. As I said, it's not that I think these are bad games by any means. It's just that I have issues with them that stop them from being on my favourites list. But also, if you have other games that you really didn't like in 2017, please let me know what they were and why. It may have just been that I didn't play them or whatever, so that would be why I overlooked them. But that's it for this video. Many apologies for the delay in getting this video made. 2018 has just been one of those years where things have been really rough, and the end of 2017 even was really difficult, and why I couldn't do the video then, no matter how much I wanted to. But please stay tuned for my favourites of last year, and I look forward to seeing you somewhere down the line. Please take care, guys, and I'll see you later.